Hey everyone, Becky here. I'm back with my thoughts on AEW Fyter Fest Night 1. This show featured a loaded card and I've got a lot of ground to cover. So without further ado, let's get started. First up, we had Jon Moxley versus Carl Anderson for the IWGP United States Championship. I was surprised and delighted that we got this match as our opening contest, and it did not disappoint. I'd missed Jon Moxley, and he hadn't lost a step after being gone all that time. Okay, it wasn't that long, but it still felt like an eternity. These two men beat the crap out of each other, and more than once, I thought my prediction was going to come true and that Carl Anderson was going to dethrone Moxley and win the title. But apparently it wasn't to be, because Moxley ultimately retained his championship. I was really surprised by the finish of this match. I was convinced that Carl Anderson was going to go over and win the title. After all, Moxley has had the belt for such a long time. It seemed like the perfect opportunity to crown a new champion. However, given the challenge that was made not long afterward, more on that later, my disappointment didn't last all that long. Up next, we had Brian Cage versus Ricky Starks for the FTW Championship. First off, I need to say the following. I knew it. I knew this was going to happen. I had a gut feeling for weeks, and I was right. Whew. As I suspected, after beating Ricky Starks from one side of the ring to the other, Brian Cage was unceremoniously screwed out of the FTW Championship with the help of the rest of Team Taz, and Ricky Starks was crowned the winner. I have to say, watching Ricky Starks get beat up after mouthing off for weeks was immensely satisfying, and that part of the match didn't disappoint in the slightest. My only real gripe is that I thought Cage's ejection from Team Taz would be a bit more violent, shall I say? But given how angry Cage likely is over being screwed out of his title and losing to Ricky Starks of all people, it's probably wise that Team Taz cleared the ring as quickly as they did. Besides, I get the feeling from Brian Cage's Twitter feed that things are far from over in this feud. Ricky Starks and the rest of Team Taz need to have eyes in the backs of their heads from here on out. After those two opening matches, we ended up hearing from Hangman Adam Page regarding what Kenny Omega has been saying about him in recent weeks. And wow, okay, there is a lot to unpack here. First, let's start with one of the bigger developments in the slow build to Hangman versus Omega. That being that Hangman Page is finally convinced that he is, in fact, worthy of becoming AEW champion. Thank goodness. I was worried that AEW would drag this part of the storyline out too long, but nope. We are over that hurdle and onto the build for the match itself. Well, almost. You see, just as Page was about to outright challenge Kenny for the title, the Elite showed up and made things interesting. And on a quick side note, Don Callis got some of the loudest mega heat I've ever heard once he came out, but I digress. After running down Hangman, engaging in some of the best verbal sparring I've heard in years, and attempting an ambush and so on, things broke down until the Dark Order were facing down the Elite. And that's when the match was made. At an unspecified date, it may be Fyter Fest Night 2, but that has yet to be confirmed as of this recording, there will be a 5-on-5 elimination match between the Dark Order and the Elite. If Dark Order wins, Hangman gets his title shot against Kenny Omega, and the Dark Order get a shot at the Young Bucks tag team titles. However, if the Elite win, no tag team title shot, and Hangman forfeits his shot at the AEW Championship. It seems like pretty high stakes, and it kind of is, but, I mean, it's pretty much written on the wall where this is going to go. We all know that Hangman is going to be facing Kenny Omega for the title, most likely at All Out. But I love that AEW is taking the time to get there. And a 5-on-5 elimination match will provide a nail-biting hurdle for us to watch, as we all wonder if this dream match is really going to happen, even though we all know it is. This is great, too, because it also gives Dark Order a chance to showcase their talents on Dynamite, as opposed to Dark or Dark Elevation. I have nothing against the YouTube shows, I love them both very much, but it's not quite the same thing as appearing on Dynamite. I also really love how the animosity is starting to slowly build between Hangman and Kenny. At this rate, by the time the match actually happens in a few months' time, those two will be ready to tear each other limb from limb, and I'm ready to see it happen. Now, if they can just confirm when this match is happening, I'll be really happy. After that segment, we had Matt Hardy versus Christian Cage in one of the matchups that I'd really been looking forward to seeing. It's a good match. It really is. And yet, I couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Maybe I'm just in denial about these two getting older, but this match didn't hit me in the feels as much as I thought it would. Oh, there were crazy moments, to be sure, but it wasn't quite the same as what I was expecting. Disappointments aside, though, I'm glad Christian got to have a one-on-one match with Matt Hardy, and that he ultimately got the victory. Who knows? Perhaps AEW will use that as an excuse to move these two on to other things. Or maybe not. We'll just have to wait and see. Up after that came Sammy Guevara versus Wheeler Yuta. This match was only recently announced for tonight's show, and I was all for it the minute I heard about it. I'm a huge fan of Sammy Guevara's work in the ring, and I've been a fan of Wheeler Yuta since he debuted in AEW, and let me just say that these two did not disappoint. This match almost stole the show for me, and in fact, if the main event had been anything else, it probably would have. It was that good. Seriously, if you missed Dynamite tonight, go back and watch this match. It's good. They're both good, and I see great things ahead for both of them. Please, 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 let this lead to more of Wheeler Yuta being on Dynamite. This man deserves the biggest spotlight possible. Also, it was really nice to see Sammy getting the hometown pop from the crowd, and the win. Finally, in the penultimate match for the show, we had Penelope Ford versus Yuka Sakazaki. I thought it was weird to place this match right before the coffin match main event, but I figured maybe AEW wanted to put something relatively light out there before Darby Allin and Ethan Page attempted to kill each other. In any event, it was great to see Yuka Sakazaki back again. She was just as good as I remembered, and after seeing her convincing win over Penelope Ford, I hope we see a lot more of her in AEW moving forward. Finally, it was time for the main event. Darby Allin versus Ethan Page in a coffin match, otherwise known as a casket match. Good Lord Almighty, this was a brutal main event. Before I get too deep into things, I want to mention that this match saw the return of Darby Allin's skating to the ring entrance, something I deeply missed, and I correctly predicted as the match started that someone was likely hiding in the coffin. It turned out to be Scorpio Sky, but Sting quickly negated his interference. Now for the match itself. Oh my god, I thought these two were really going to kill each other. This match makes last week's main event look almost tame in comparison. Darby Allin is amazing to watch, but at the same time, he's also completely crazy, but that's what makes him fun. I actually thought that Darby would dominate the match more because a coffin match seemed more of his thing, but I forgot that Ethan actually challenged Darby to the match in the first place, And for a while, it looked like Ethan would actually pull off the upset as he dominated Darby for quite some time. There was, for example, a downright gruesome spot where Darby was slammed down hard on the steel steps from the top rope, and an equally messed up spot when Ethan choked Darby with his own necklace. Let's just say the crowd had some choice words for Ethan after that particular spot. This was not a match for the faint at heart, but the payoff was totally worth it. After destroying the ring, literally, Darby finally got the job done and then decided to coffin drop through the coffin for good measure. I'm not sure what this means for the long-term feud between Darby Allin and Ethan Page. I doubt that it's over quite yet, and given how things went early, I think a match between Scorpio Sky and Sting might be in the works, as the former was all too eager to attack the icon. Regardless, this was a fantastic main event, and AEW continues to blow me away and leave me wanting more by the end of the show. Overall, I enjoyed Fyter Fest Night 1. The stacked card did not disappoint, even if Matt Hardy versus Christian Cage didn't quite live up to my admittedly inflated expectations, and I'm very excited to see how the story continues on Night 2. Also, I should mention there was also some interesting story developments between Malachi Black and Cody Rhodes, and Andrade El Idolo and Death Triangle of all groups, that I hope quickly materialize into matches. Now, speaking of Fyter Fest Night 2, AEW gave us a tantalizing glimpse at some of the card for next week, and I want to quickly run that down. First, we have a rematch of sorts, as Lance Archer will be challenging Jon Moxley for the IWGP United States Championship in a Texas death match. If that sounds familiar, that's because this is how Moxley won the title in the first place when he faced Lance Archer at Wrestle Kingdom 14. I've seen that match, and let me tell you, their rematch next week is not to be missed. It's going to be violence on a whole different level, I assure you. Then we have Orange Cassidy versus The Blade. Given that Orange Cassidy will be in this match, I know I'll enjoy it, but I'm kind of over The Blade. I don't know, he isn't really clicking with me, and that's really all I have to say about this match. Next was announced the first of the 5 labors of Jericho. Next week, Chris Jericho will be facing Shawn Spears in a must-win match, but as promised, there's a catch for Jericho. While Spears can legally use chairs in this match, Jericho can't. That will certainly make life interesting for Le Champion, but I have confidence that Jericho will win, because otherwise he's not getting his hands on MJF. Finally, there's the upcoming title match between Britt Baker and Nyla Rose for the AEW Women's Championship. As much as I love Nyla Rose, and she is one of my favorite wrestlers, it's far too soon for Britt Baker to be losing the championship, considering she just won it at Double or Nothing. I'm sure Nyla will put up a great offense, but we all know that Britt Baker fights dirty, and I can only assume she'll be retaining. That's all I've got for this week. I'm greatly looking forward to Fyter Fest Night 2. I'll be back tomorrow with my thoughts on Impact's Go Home show for Slammiversary. Until then, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye!